We begin today the Gemara on Daf Lamed Aleph, right at the beginning of the Yomad. The Gemara continues with a few different stories between arguments of people regarding the ownership of a land. One is arguing and saying that this property here belongs to my father, or I got it from my father, I inherited it from him. And the Bachir adds, and I've been here in this field for 3 years now, and 3 years establishes a chazakah, a presumptive status that he's the owner. And the other individual arguing with him says, no, that this property, I inherited from my father. So one of them brought witnesses testifying that it belonged to his father, so he inherited it from his father. And the other brought witnesses, the achla shnei chazakah. He couldn't find any witnesses that it once belonged to his father, but he has witnesses that he was here for 3 years, that he has a chazakah in his property. Amar Rabbe, so Rabbe says about this case, that the one that has the witnesses that he's here for 3 years, a chazakah, he's the one that's believed. Why? Because ma loy l'shaker. He has a migu, which is the Gemara calls ma loy l'shaker. What this means is the one that's saying that he has the chazakah, it wasn't necessary for him to say they inherited it from his father. He could have simply said, I bought it from you. You inherited it from your father. And you have witnesses that you inherited from your father, but I bought it off you, and now I'm here for 3 years. He could have simply said that. So anytime a person could have said a better taina and would have been believed with that, that's what's called ma'ala l'shaka, meaning that we now have a proof that he's saying the truth. If you'd be a liar, why should he say this claim that he's saying where he's going to lose with this claim? He could have just simply said something else, a better claim that he would have been believed. So the fact that he's saying this claim shows that he's just honest. So ma'ala l'shaka is a proof of honesty.
Why is that a better claim?
Because when he says that I inherited from my father, that goes against the edim that the other person brought, that he inherited from his father. But when you say that you have a chazakah and you bought it from him, so you're saying, yeah, I'm not contradicting what you're saying. You inherited it from your father, but then I bought it off of you. So that would have been a winning claim. So therefore we see over here that he's honest. So therefore he wins. So the Gemara says on this, okay, if you wanted, he could have said, I bought this property from you. And then after I bought it from you, I'm here, I was here for 3 years. So Abaye says to this psak din of Rabbe, to give a person this level of trust because of this miguk, that he could have said a better taina, does not work in this case. Why? Because the actual taina that he's saying now is a taina that's contradicting what Adam say. What he's actually saying is that I inherited it from my father, and you did not inherit it from your father. So the taina that you're actually saying is going against Adam. So even if you have a migu that proves your honesty, but the honesty is not going to work in the case, that migu, the power to prove your honesty, is not strong enough to go against what witnesses are saying, that you're a liar. Witnesses are saying that the taina that you're saying that you inherited from your father is not true. He has Adam that he inherited from his father. So this kind of migu, or any migu really, does not work against Adam. That's what Abaye answers him.
If he says he got it from his father, he says he got it from his father, it's not the same father. So obviously, obviously that he sold it to him afterwards.
Who said? That's not what he's saying.
That is what he's saying.
No, that's one second. That's not that. He's just saying, I inherited from my father. He says, your father? I never heard of your father. Your father never lived. He's just you claim you were inherited from your father, and he's saying, no, I inherited this field from my father. He's directly contradicting the other person's taina, which has Adam testifying that it belonged to his father. So he's saying a taina against Adam. So now at the same time, there's a migu to show that he's a trustworthy person, but your trust does not work when you're contradicting Adam. That's what Abaye says. This answer of Abaye to Rabbe is such a strong answer that it's obvious that no level of trust works against Adam, that all the Rishonim actually wonder on this Gemara, what was Rabbe even thinking when he was saying that he can accept this migu against Adam. So it's a discussion in Rishonim about this. But this was the svara of Rabbe. Okay, well, as we see over here from the continuation of the Gemara, Rabbe retracted from his psak din. He agreed to what Abaye said. Why? Because the Gemara goes on to say that now, after this psak din, that he said that the one that has the Adam wins, so the story developed further. So now this person sees that he's losing the Dintayra, because the other person has Adam, that it belonged to his father. So now he comes back and says, and here he spells out his taina. And he says as follows: in the Avasachi, yes, it did belong to your father, but it was Evantaminach. And I bought it from you. You inherited it from your father, and I bought it from you. That's not the taina that he said. He didn't say that he bought it from him. He said that it belonged to my father. Now he explains himself. The Amrilach, the Avasi, the fact that I originally came and claimed that I inherited from my father, that's not what I meant to say is the Samachli Allah Kedavasi. What he meant to say is I rely on this. I'm so sure that this is mine as if I inherited from my father. That's what I meant to say. But really what I meant to say is that I have a chazaka and I bought it for you and I'm here for 3 years. That's so he sort of changes his taina. So the Gemara says now the question becomes tayin v'chayze v'tayin or aim tayin v'chayze v'tayin. Can he taina one claim first and then later on sort of change his taina? Or no? Once you taina one taina, you can't come and change your taina. So the Rashbami explains that the Gemara is asking this question specifically in this kind of case because here he's changing his taina in a way that the new taina he's saying now is the lashon of the Rashbami is a hakosha kitzas. It's somewhat of a contradiction to his first taina. He's sort of excusing what he meant to say before. When I said I inherited from my father, I didn't mean that literally. I meant that I'm so sure that it's mine, like I inherited from my father. So the question is, in such a kind of case, could you change your taina from before? So the Gemara says it's an argument. In such a case, because you're excusing what you meant before, you're able to now say this new taina. However, the Chacham Nardai said, you said one taina before. Now you're changing your taina, even though you're giving an explanation that this is what you meant before, but it's somewhat of a contradiction to what you said before. So you can't change your taina from before. So here, the Gemara though brings different cases of a person changing his taina, where there won't be an argument about this. And the Gemara is going to show cases where Ula will be Maida and cases where Nerdoi will be Maida. Says the Gemara first, Ula will be Maida and say, so even though Ula is the one that says that you could change your taina, but nevertheless, Ula will be Maida, if when he originally came into Bezdin, he spelled out his claim. He said, I inherited this field from my father, and it never belonged to your father. He clearly said, no, I inherited it from my father. So he spelled it out very clearly. So now, he's not going to be able to then come and change his taina and say, oh, it did belong to your father, but I bought it from your father, and I only said that. I meant to say that I'm so sure it's mine as if I got it from my father, because he already spelled out in the beginning that it's v'loy shel avisacha, it never belonged to your father. So he's contradicting Adam. And on another case where Ola will be made, if this person was in Bezdin, v'loy ton, and he didn't taina this taina that I bought it from you, then v'asam avroi, he leaves the Bezdin, and then after he leaves Bezdin, then he comes back into Bezdin v'toyin. Now he comes and changes his taina. Even the way the Gemara described before. But he only changed his taina after he left Bezdin. He can't come and not change and explain what I meant before, even if he's coming, this is what I meant to say, and I'm saying a new taina, you can't change it anymore. Why? Because my taina, tanase agmere. Because we say the person left Bezdin and he discussed it with his friends, and people taught him what he should do. Change your taina. So we see that he's being dishonest because of the advice that he got out of Bezdin. Now, on the other hand, the Moed Nerdoi that said before that a person can't come and excuse and change his taina, even if it's a hakosha ktsas, you can't change it from before. But Nerdoi will agree in the following case. So here, this is the point that you mentioned before, that he comes now and says, when I said that it belongs to my father, what I meant to say is that my father bought it from your father. That's what I meant to say. The chayze v'tayin, in this case, the person can change his taina. Because over here, there isn't any hakosha. He's not in any way contradicting what he said before. One says that it belongs to his father, and he has eaten for that. And you're coming and saying it belonged to my father. All I meant to say is that my father bought it off of your father. That's it. There's no contradiction here in the first place. So in such a case, you could be chayze v'tayin, even according to Nerdai. And another case where Nerdai is made, v'heichad ishtoi mili avroi, or me'avroi. When a person said a certain taina outside of Bezdin. This was being discussed already before they came into Bezdin, Avroi leBezdin, and he said a certain taina, and v'loy ton, and he did not say that taina in Bezdin. He didn't say this kind of taina yet. V'asel leBeidina v'ton, and now he comes to Bezdin. Now he says a new taina that he didn't say outside of Bezdin. So he's changing from what he said outside Bezdin. The chayze v'tayin, in such a case, Nadar will be made that a person can change his claim from what he said earlier outside of Bezdin. My time, why is this? It's very common that a person that's discussing a din taina that he has, and he says a taina that he would say, he's not really saying the true taina he wants to say. He doesn't want to reveal to the other side what it is that he would say, that they should prepare themselves with a counterclaim. So he says outside some kind of foolish taina. Then when he comes into Bezdin, there he says the real taina that he wants to say. So that's not called a chayz v'tayin. So you hear even Nerdoi would be maida. Amar said about this machlokes, Anon Nerda no. I come from the city of Nerda. And even though all the Chacham in Nerda held regarding the first case where there's a hakchosh ktsas that you can't change your taina, but with Svidali, I hold like Olet, the tayin, the chayz v'tayin. That even in that case, you are able to change your taina. And the hilchase, the halacha is like Olet, tayin, the chayz v'tayin. You say one taina in Bezdin, you can change the taina later on, as long as it's not a complete hakosha, as long as you're not totally changing from what you said before. If you have some kind of explanation that this is what you meant before, even though it's somewhat of a contradiction, you could be chayzev v'tayin. Another case, the Gemara says, here there's even more of a contradiction between these two people. One comes and says that this property belonged to my father, and again the Bachir adds, and he also says that he was here 3 years in this land, and the other one comes and says, no, it belonged to my father, and he was also there. He was also there for 3 years. Now over here what happened is, I see Sadi, the so one of them brings Eidim that say that it belonged to his father, and also that and that he was here for 3 years. But now I see Sadi, the other one brings Eidim, the Achla Shnei Chazaka, that those very same 3 years that Eidim say that you are occupying this land, he brings Eidim, but no, that say that that's not true. They contradict the other group of Eidim, and they say that no, this guy was here for 3 years in this land. So here we have Eidim that are contradicting each other regarding the very same 3 years. Who was living in this land? So what's the halacha here? So, but if you notice here, the story is that regarding the times of who was living here in the 3 years, you have the contradiction of the Eidim. But there is still one of the groups of Eidim that are saying that it belonged to his father. And for that, the other Eidim are not contradicting that. They said, regarding this that you say that it belonged to his father, we don't know anything about that. So Rav Nachman says about this, Oiki achila lebahadi achila. We take the words of the Eidim regarding who was eating here, who was occupying this field for 3 years, and we put the words of these Eidim against the words of the other Eidim, and then that's basically nothing, that those words are cancelled out because they're contradicting each other. And now, who do we give this field to? To the one that has the Eidim that say they belong to his father. Those words of the Eidim is not being contradicted. So he's the one that gets it. So basically, Rav Nachman is saying we have to split the words of the Eidim. The part of the Eidos that's contradicted is thrown out, but the part of the Eidos that's not contradicted, so then that's valid, and we give it to him. So Rav argues and Rav Nachman and says, how could you divide it this way? Since these Eidim are contradicting each other, so we see that there's a suffix that these Eidim are liars. So if there's a suffix that they're liars, we can't accept any of the Eidos that they say. You can't take part of the Eidos and say that this we throw out because we don't know who's lying here. But then a part of what they're saying that nobody contradicted, that we accept. Once there's a suffix on these Eidos that they may be lying, we can't accept anything that these Eidos say, even the part that they're not being contradicted. So Rav Nachman says back to him, Mamalei, Rav Nachman asks, well, why should you do that? True, regarding who is the one that was eating and occupying this land in the 3 years, there's a contradiction there, and I can't accept any of their testimony, but ba'avas mi iskachish. But regarding the Eidos that says that it belonged to his father, there's no contradiction to that. So that's something that everybody agrees about. So why shouldn't I accept that Eidos? So here you can see a machlokes when you have a contradiction of Eidos, which is what's called a trey, when you have 2 against 2, and you can't seemingly trust any of them. Do you split this and say that regarding where there's the contradiction, there I can't trust them, but the part that they're not contradicting, that I accept? Or do you say no, you have to throw out the entire thing? Says the Gemara, Leime Rava v'Rav Nachman. So shall we say that this argument here between Rava and Rav Nachman, beflukte der Rav Huna v'Rav Chisda kamiflagi. It's the same machlokes that Rav Huna and Rav Chisda had regarding this kind of situation, or similar situation, where you have Eidim that contradict each other. Because the Itmar, we learned the machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Beis kite Eidim amakhishay zu azu. When you have two groups of Eidim that are contradicting one another. So this is a case where it's a hakosha. The Rashbam just clarifies that you have sometimes, many times, the Gemara discusses the concept of hazama, where one group of Eidim comes and says a story of what happened. Let's say they say that so-and-so borrowed $1,000. And then the second group of Eidim come and contradict and say, how could you say that you were there and saw that he borrowed $1,000? If you were with us at a different location, so you couldn't have seen this happening. That's what's called hazama. And there the Torah says that the second group of Eidim are believed more than the first. Here we're talking about akasha. The akasha is that in the actual story itself there's a contradiction. One group of Eidim say that Reuven borrowed $1,000 at this and this place and this time. And the second group of Eidim come and say, no, Reuven at that time was not there. He never borrowed this $1,000. So this is a akasha where you can't believe one more than the other. They're contradicting each other now. So Amar Rav Huna says, Rav Huna, obviously, beneged to this case itself that they're contradicting each other. We can't trust either of them. So there's a suffix here. So the edus regarding this case is thrown out. But nevertheless, regarding any other case, this group of edus can come and testify themselves, and the other group of edus can come and testify themselves. Because there's a suffix over here, which group is lying? So there's something that's called cheskas kashrus. Each group for themselves has a chazaka that they're still kosher. Within this story itself, there's a contradiction here in the Cheskas Kashrus. On one hand, you have this group and the other group, so they're contradicting each other. You can't use their words at all. But if one group wants to now come and testify regarding another story separately, their words will be accepted, and I'll apply the Cheskas Kashrus and say there's a presumption that they're kosher and their words are accepted. Okay, now the Rashbam just points out, what's if you're going to take one aid from this group and one aid of the other group and want to combine them together? Then that won't be accepted, because now you for sure know that one of them in this group of Edis is lying, so that's not going to work. Rav Huna is saying specifically either one group separately or the other group separately. That's when it works. So here you see, the point that Rav Huna is saying is that even though regarding this story here, the words of the Eidos are worthless, but nevertheless, regarding a different case, we accept the Cheskas Kashrus. Right, so the Gemara is going to explain that this svara of Rav Huna is basically the same point that Rav Nachman said. That here you have the two parts of their edus. There's the part that they contradicted each other regarding the chazakah. Regarding that, we throw out edus. But then regarding the part that they did not contradict each other, you have just one group that's saying that it belonged to his father, that we do accept. That's exactly like the point that Rav Huna said. And again, the basis of Rav Huna's shitta is a concept of cheskas kashrus. But Rav
Huna is not dividing up the edus.
Yeah, and the Chanami. True. Rav Huna is saying that regarding a different case, they can come and testify. Yeah. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain. Rav Chisda, however, Rav Chisda says, Bahadi, Sadi, Shakri, Lomu. Rav Chisda says that no, these people, they are Eidos Sheker, meaning that I see here there's a suffix which one of them is saying the truth. It's one of these groups is definitely lying. So therefore, in such a case, none of these groups of Eidim could come and testify even regarding any other case themselves, even though l'chayra there should be a cheskas kashrus, but in such a case, you can't apply a cheskas kashrus. Over here, one of them is definitely lying. There's no cheskas kashrus in such a kind of instance. And therefore, if one of these groups of Eidim are going to try to testify in another case regarding a money matter, the halacha there is going to remain that you leave the money where it is, on the chazaka of the money. You're not going to change the status based on these Eidim. There's a suffix in such a case that you can't use their Eidos for anything at all. So says the Gemara, Leime, shall we say, Rav Nachman, Dhamaka Rav Huna. Rav Nachman that said in our case that we split the Eidos, that for what they contradicted themselves, we throw out the Eidos. For what they did not, we accept the Eidos. That's like Rav Huna, similar to the point Rav Huna is saying, that what they contradicted themselves is good. For another case, they could testify. Sorry, for what they contradicted themselves, it's bad. It's V'Rave K'Rav Chisda. And Rava that says over here that once it's a contradiction, so these Eidim are liars, there's a suffix that they're liars, and there's no cheskas kashrus anymore, that's like the point that Rav Chisda said here, that you can't use their Eidos for anything. Says the Gemara, these Amiroim, they're not arguing the exact same case. So therefore the Gemara says as follows. Aliva de Rav Chisda, If you would be following what Rav Chisda said over here, that once you see that these Eidim lied in one case, you can't use them for any other story, for anything else at all, kula al malei pligi. There's no argument here, meaning it definitely, regarding our case, Rav Chisda would hold, since we're talking about the same story, within the very same story itself, there's a portion of the Eidos where there's a contradiction, and a portion where there's not. For sure, according to Rav Chisda, you can't use this Eidos regarding this story at all. So that's clear. Kipligi, however, you could say that the argument of Rava and Rav Nachman was aliba de Rav Huna. They can be arguing according to Rav Huna's opinion. Rav Nachman ke Rav Huna. What Rav Nachman says in our case, that you split the Eidos, that the part that there's a contradiction is not accepted, and the part that there's no contradiction is accepted, could be compared to what Rav Huna said. That you accept a portion of the Eidos, because like Rav Huna said, that if the Eidim are testifying in another case, it's accepted. Similar here. Rava will answer you and say, I could agree to Rav Huna, but there's a difference. Ad kan lekom Rav Huna elol Eidos acheres. When did Rav Huna come and say that these Eidim that contradicted each other can now come and testify? That's if it's a testimony on a different story altogether. But over here, in the very same story itself, where there's a contradiction in what they're saying, and now you want to pick out one part of the Eidos and say that this is still true and you should accept that, loy. That over here, within the very same story, that you can't do. It's the Rashbam says it's the same karka over here regarding the very same story. This over here, you can't split this. Somebody trying to say the pshat is because within the very same story, you see here that one of these Eidim are motivated to lie. So you're going to come and say now that we're going to accept a part of the Eidos that is true, but there's a suffix regarding this very Eidos that they're saying now that maybe they're lying. Over here, Rava is arguing that even Rav Huna would agree that you can't do that. Okay, now the story continues. What happened after this? Hadai Sisadi. So now till here there was a contradiction regarding who is the one that had the chazaka for 3 years. So, but regarding the Eidos of the father, over there only one group of Eidim had that chazaka. So originally the Psak Din was like Rav Nachman said, that we accept those Eidim that say that it belonged to his father, and therefore he's the one that can occupy the field. But then what happened is the other person brought Eidim, obviously he also brought Eidim that it belonged to his father. So now these Eidim are contradicting each other on every account. Who's the one that's been occupying the field for 3 years, and whose father did it belong to? So now the Psak Din has to change. Before they paskin like Rav Nachman that it should go to the one that said has Eidos that it belonged to his father. But now that's a contradiction to that itself. What do we do now? Amar Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman said, Ananach Sine, we went and gave this person that had the Eidos that it belonged to his father, we placed him into the field and gave him the chazaka in the field, that he was right. But now that that's been contradicted, Anan Maskinale, we're going to remove him, we'll take him out of the field. Now there's a contradiction here, so now we can't give him the right of ownership anymore. And what's going to happen now? So the Rashbam Shitta here is, what we're going to do now is, in such a case where you have this trey, 2 against 2, and we have no clue what to do, so Bezin really can't do anything. Here, in such a case, the halacha will be called the olam gava. That we let them fight. No, we don't know. There's no halacha of splitting it over here because no one has a chazak in it. Over here, in this case, the halacha will be called the olam gava, that they both just, or they can fight it out on their own. That's what the Rashbam here says. Other Rishonim disagree with this and say that in this case you don't say called the olam gava. Maybe Yachloiku, like you said, but not the but Rashbam here says the halacha would be not called Olam Gava. But the point is that Rav Nachman says we're going to change the Psak Din. And he added and explained, Liziluse de Beidine Loichashinon. We're not concerned by the fact that we're changing the Psak Din of before this becomes disgraceful for the Bezdin. Bezdin gives one Psak, and now they give a different psak. People are going to look and say, look, the Bezdin can't make up its mind, so it becomes an embarrassment for the Bezdin. Says Rav Nachman, we're not concerned about that. We'll be ready to change the psak din. Now all the Rishonim point out that here the Gemara will not continue and discuss this concept of Zilusa de Beidine. If it was a case where it's clear that the previous psak din was a mistake, and now there's a new psak din that has to be given, obviously we're not concerned about the disgrace of the Bezdin. There's a new psak din. The facts changed. But over here, in this case, the new psak din is based on a suffix. Now what happened is you have the contradiction of the Eidim on every account, so now Bezdin does not know what to do. So maybe in this case it would be a svara to say that we're not going to change the previous psak din if now all you have is a suffix. To change because of a suffix, that's not enough of a reason to change if it will bring an embarrassment to the Bezdin. So the Gemara is saying that no, even here, when you're changing the psak din because of a suffix, we're not concerned about the zilus of the Beit Din, about the disgrace of the Bezdin, and we will change the psak din.
But what's the outcome? What's going to happen?
So now it's going to be a stalemate, and therefore they're going to have to just fight it out on their own. That's what's called kol dom gavar. They're going to have to settle it somehow themselves. Bezdin has no say in the matter. There's nothing Bezdin can do. So the Gemara asks him this Masav Rav v'Teimer Abziri. This concept here that we just said, that we're not concerned about changing the psak din of the Bezdin. So Rava or Rav Zira asked Rav Nachman on this. There's a brisa that says regarding a situation where you have a woman's husband that left town, and now it's not clear what happened to him. Is he still alive or not? Shnai Maimrim Meis, 2 Adam come and say that he died. Shnai Maimrim Lay Meis, but another 2 come and contradict and say that he did not lie. So again, a similar story to what we're talking about before, when you have 2 against 2. Or Shnai Maimrim Nizgarsha, a woman comes into the city and 2 people testify about her that she was divorced from a previous marriage, and Shnai Maimrim Lay Nizgarsha, 2 say that she was not divorced. So the question is, what do we do now? 2 against 2. So she can't get married. And the reason is because if this is a woman that we know was married before, so the chazaka is there's a cheskas eshes ish, that she has the status of being an eshes ish. Now that there's a suffix based on words of Adam, so we just go back to that status and she can't go and get remarried. This is, however, if she went and got married, we're not going to force her to leave that marriage. Now, why is this? This is a clear suffix, and even more, there's really a chazaka that she's an eshes ish. If she went and took action and she got married, why won't we force her to leave? So the Rashbam here brings from what it says in the Gemara in Ksubis that this is in a very specific case. That's only if she got married to one of those Eidim that say that I know for a fact that her husband is dead. And also, she herself is saying, I know for a fact that my husband died. If both she and the person she's marrying are saying that we know for a fact that the husband is dead, it's in this case that they are believed against this cheskas shesish, and she can stay married b'diavad after the fact. However, Rav Nachman Rabbi Yasi says, Teitzei. No, even after the fact, she went and she got married, she still will tell her to leave this marriage. Now here, Rav Nachman Rabbi Yasi explains, when did he say this? Rav Nachman Rabbi Yasi, it actually depends when she got married. When do I say that even after the fact that she got married, she has to leave this marriage? Marriage that is, Bisman Shabo Eidim, in a case where the Eidim came and said, the second group of Eidim that came and said that your husband is still alive, they came first, and even after she heard that there are Eidim that say that her husband is still alive, she still went and got married. Then we say that because she wasn't supposed to go and get married, because it's a suffix, so therefore, she's not supposed to get married, even though she says at Taina's body that my husband's dead, and the age she wants to marry is saying, I know for a fact that the husband is dead, but still, you're not supposed to get married. So since she got married when she wasn't supposed to, so therefore Rav Nachman says, as a knas, she has to leave. Avonisis. But if what happened is, 2 Eidim came and said that her husband is dead, and she went and got married, and she got married because Eidim said that her husband is dead. Then and only afterwards did Eidim come and say, another group of Eidim came and said that your husband is still alive. Over here, she doesn't have to leave this marriage. And the reason why she doesn't have to leave this marriage is because of Zilusa de Beit Din. Once Bezdin Paskin, that she's allowed to get married, and she went and got married, al pi halacha, the way Bezdin Paskin. So now to change that psak din because another group of Eidim came, we're not going to change that psak din. Because me'ikra din, she's really allowed to get married. She herself is saying a Taina's body. The person that she's marrying is also saying, I know for a fact that this man, that her husband is dead. So therefore now to say that we should give her a knas after the fact because another group of Eidim came and said that the husband is still alive, we don't say that after the fact once she got married because it's zilusa de Beit Din for Bezdin to change their original psak din. And again, this is all in a situation where it's a suffix because the new psak din that we would want to change now is really just a suffix. It's 2 against 2. And furthermore, she herself and the husband that she now got married to are saying, we know for a fact the husband is dead. So Bezdin is not going to change this and will allow her to stay married. So the point is, you see clearly here from this brayse that we are concerned about the disgrace of the Bezdin, and once Bezdin paskins and she got married, we're not going to force her to leave that marriage. That was the question that was asked to Rav Nachman, that when Rav Nachman was ready to change the psak din. So Rav Nachman says to Rava, or Rav Zira, that asked him this question, I thought to do, as I said, to change the original psak din, but you asked me this question, you pointed out for me this brisa where you see that we're not going to change the psak din in such a kind of situation, and Avnuna from Surya also pointed this out to me. So I'm not going to do like I said I would do. I'm not going to change the psak din from what it was before because of this issue of Zilusa the Beidin and then disgrace for the Bezdin. But then the Gemara says what ended up happening. Nafak, eventually later, Rav Nachman did go out. Avadovda, he did do this. He did change the original psak din of the way it was before. Now, man dechaze, people observing this, Sava, they thought, Tosi biyodeh, he's making a mistake. It was proven to him that in such a kind of situation, to change from the original psak din, when the new psak din of the Bezdin is not even there's no solid reason to change it. It's just a suffix. In such a case, we're concerned for Zilusa the Beidina. They thought that he's making a mistake. It says the Gemara Veloihi, that's not true. Ela mishum detalya b'asher Rav. The reason why he changes psak din is because he's hanging on to a very thick rope, which means that he had a few tanoim to rely upon that hold that even in such a case we're not concerned of the disgrace of the Bezdin, and you could change your psak din. And here the Gemara will bring another Mishnah where it brings other tanoim that will see that all these tanoim hold that in such a case you could change the psak din. Okay, this is the Gemara continues all the way down. The next Amud we'll see that this inside that we're not chayshish for Zilusa the Beidina.